No, I thought Lilith wrote Wednesday. Anyway, it's...
Hello.
Well, Lilith is here, we can check. Lilith, we're going bowling tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5:30.
No, I thought Lilith wrote Wednesday. Where is
Tomorrow it
that? The
is.
place close to the Han?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes,
The
okay.
the bowling? Yeah.
Yeah.
There will be 2 lines.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Who's presenting today?
You.
I'm presenting. Eduardo, you are presenting.
I'm sorry, Alexa, I wouldn't even care.
Right. Gotta fix the link situation. I can see that.
Yes. I'm helping with the...
Thank you. We're more people than I thought, given
it's
it's Easter holidays.
Exactly. Eva.
I mean, we can leave if you really...
No. That was not the point I was making, Eduardo. Nice try. Okay, I think that's everyone in the room now. Welcome to Neuroccino on this Monday morning, 9:30. And extra thanks for those who are here despite many of our teams being on Easter break or frantically writing theses to end their PhDs soon. Today, Marcela is presenting. And can you reshare the link, please, for everyone?
Yes, I just sent it.
Brilliant. So today we're going to talk about electrophysiological signatures underlying variability in human memory consolidation. So without further ado, if you want to take it away, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I'm just gonna, I will send the link one more time for people that are joining. And I'm gonna share my screen. Where is the PDF? This one, I think. Can you see my screen, my PDF?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. So yeah, as they say, today I'm gonna present this paper that was published in Nature Communication last month, so in March. And yes, I have a huge interest in memory, so it was of huge interest to me. So let's start. So in this study, they try to understand what are the temporal dynamics of the hippocampal and the cortical communication and all the related neural oscillations during memory reactivation. So in order to do this, so there are several studies trying to understand how concepts are consolidated in memory or the different ideas or things we learned. And one of the most used protocols is how sleeping helps with the consolidation of memory. So usually these are explored in animals or also in humans, but in humans is usually limited by the different method we can use as fMRI with the very low temporal dimension and resolution. And then we have the EEG, but it has a very low spatial resolution. So they took advantage of a group of patients. So in particular, specifically, it was 11 patients with intra-electrodes or intracranial electrodes, and they look at intra-EEG information. So I'm gonna go immediately to show you the protocol, and I would explain to you how they look at this. So they use something, sorry for going back. So they use a method that is called target memory reactivation, in which they present or teach participants different items related to a specific cue. So here, this is the protocol. So we can see in A, so in the first part, they explain all the protocol to the participants. Then there is a learning phase, then some rest, and then there is a test of what they learned before the participants went to sleep. And then there was a second evaluation, so the same test, but now after sleeping. So this is the protocol we can see in B. So participants were presented with 50 items, 50 photos in a grid. So here you can see the grid, and these items were presented with a specific sound. So participants learned to relate this item with the specific sound, and the task was to remember what was the position of this item. So we can see here, participants first look at all the 50 different items. They learned where they were located. And then in the learning phase and then in the test, what they did, they were shown with the item and they place it in the correct location. And during the learning phase, they received some feedback to telling them, okay, this was the position, or like you were very far, etc. So then they had this pre-test, a pre-sleep test, where they just had to locate all the 50 different items in the correct position and without any feedback. So then when they went to sleep, they received only 25 sounds that were related with only 25 items that they learned. So the idea was to stimulate, to consolidate the position of these 25 items while they were sleeping. And in addition, they also presented all other 25 control or neutral sounds. So this is the whole task. And so in C, you just can see how was the different presentation of the different items. And then what they evaluated, there were two different measurements at the behavioral level. So the first one was something called drop error. So they measure the Euclidean distance between the correct location of the object and the one given by the participants. So what we can see here in D is that while participants were learning during the task, this error was like lower, so what's decreasing. In the last trial, that was very low. And then we can see in the pre-sleep test and the post-sleep test that this error was, they were not different to each other, but they were significantly different than having these results by chance. But the main measure they evaluated at the behavioral level was this called memory change score, where they calculated, it was a ratio between the distance across all the items, the distance between the correct location and the one given by the participants in the pre-sleep test divided by these measures in the post-sleep test. So just the difference in the distance between the correct location and the real distance given by location given by the participants. And what they found is that this memory change score was higher for the cue items compared to the no cue items. So the sounds that were presented during while participants were sleeping had a better performance in the post-sleep test compared to the items that were not cued during the sleep. So this is just to say that the protocol was working and that the items that were cued while participants were sleeping had a better performance by the subject after the sleeping phase. So then they wanted to look at the, of course, neural patterns of this consolidation. And at first, what they did, they look at two different components. So the first is the hippocampal ripples. And in A, you can just see the location of the different contacts in the different patients. And the bigger spheres are the ones that were considered for evaluating the hippocampal ripples during the task. And then in G, what we can see is the different contacts, the different electrodes that were located at the cortical level for the different participants. So what they did, I'm just gonna go to the figure F. They look at the hippocampal ripples, so they activate these dynamic waves after the presentation of the, this is in the learning phase. So this is after the presentation of the cue. And what we can see is that in this period that is in yellow, they found, so it's between 400 and 1,000 milliseconds after the stimulus, they found that there was a significant increase of the ripples in the hippocampus. That, of course, was related to the presentation of the stimulus during the learning phase. So once they look at this, they wanted to know if also there was some information related to the presentation of the items, the different items during the task at the cortical level. So that's when they did this second analysis that is shown in H, where they look at the different dynamics, electrophysiological dynamics at the cortical level by comparing during the different learning phases. They compare if the patterns, the activity patterns that they observe within an item, so every time they presented the cat, if this dynamic, this pattern of activity was similar between them, as compared if they look at the dynamic between, for instance, the presentation of cat and another object. So what they found, and what we can see in which one? I'm going to go directly to K, is that this is the difference between the within item and between item activity. And what we can see is that there is a huge different correlation. So this is something called, the analysis is retrieval similarity. So it's a value of similarity. So here in K, we can observe that there is a higher similarity, higher correlation between the activity that is observed after the presentation of a same item compared to the presentation of a different item. And so the L is exactly the same, but presented in a different way, but just saying that this average, so the relationship, the correlation between this retrieval similarity is higher when they retrieve the same item compared when they retrieve a different items. So hopefully it's clear, but then you can ask me if you have any questions. But this is just to show that there is some information that is specific to the items when participants are learning these different tasks of memory. So then what they wanted to see is if there was some relationship between the reactivation of the items while participants were sleeping and the performance in the behavioral test after the sleep period. So what they did, they ran this analysis that is very specific. So what they look at here, what we are seeing here, is that they look at the different time points after presenting the stimulus while participants were sleeping. So in this upper part, we can see the time while participants were sleeping and presented with the cue, so the sound. And then in this y-axis, we can see the time before and after presenting the stimulus or the item during the learning phase. So this is just where participants were learning the position of the different items. And what we can see here in colors is just the correlation between the gamma frequency in the different electrodes in the patients. And what this is trying to find is if there was some point in this time, the temporal dynamics after the presentation of the stimulus and after the presentation of the cue where participants were sleeping that were similar in the different contacts in the cortical and in the hippocampus. So what they did here, they averaged this information across all the different items, and they ran a correlation with the memory change score for the different items. And what they found that we can see in B is that there was a higher correlation between the frequencies in the activity. This is, just let me check if it's well, I will show you later, because I'm not sure if this was at the cortical level or, yeah, the cortical level. So what we can see here only is that there is 2 time points where the dynamic of activation is similar during the learning phase and during the reactivation phase during sleeping. And what they wanted to see is if these different activations, these 2 points of reactivations are different when participants perform better for certain items, or if it, for instance, I'm gonna tell it differently. So what they did, they look at the different items and they divided them in the ones that have a higher change in the memory score. So the ones where participants perform better after sleeping, and the ones where participants perform worse after sleeping. This is only for the cued ones, so only for the 25 that were reactivating during sleeping. So what we can see here is that the strengthening items are the ones that have an improvement in the performance, and the decaying one are the ones that were worst in the performance after sleeping. So they wanted to see if these different points of reactivations in time were different for the items that improve or decrease in performance after sleep. And what they found is that, yeah, we can see in A that actually these in these 2 different time points, this similarity between the sleep and the learning phase was higher when for the items that actually had a better performance after the sleep test. So this is like a very general idea. To this point, what they have shown is that there are 2 different points of reactivations, and it seems that these times of these frequencies are more similar between the learning and the sleeping cued period for the items that improve in behavior after in the post-test. And so finally, I'm just going to go very quick in this so we can have some time for discussion. So what they did then is they wanted to look how was the difference in the ripple activities at the hippocampus level and the spindle rate. So it's another kind of frequencies that is the one we can see in E here at the cortical level. So they wanted to see if this activity in the hippocampus and in the at the cortical level was similar or different for these items that had a better performance or a worse performance in the post-test, in the post-sleep test. So what we can see here in F, so in F and no, only in F, we can see the information for the hippocampus, hippocampal ripple. So what we can see here is that during the first reactivation, so the first cluster time point here that we can see in A, we can see that there is a higher ripple rate in the hippocampus in these strengthening items compared to the control items. So the control items are the ones that didn't change in performance. But they highlight this difference that is almost significant, that is 0.54 between the strengthening and the decaying items. Then in this second reactivation, there is no difference between the hippocampal ripple. So all these activity patterns in the hippocampus is similar in all the different items. But then at the cortical level, we see the opposite. So we see that there is no difference between the items, so in the activity at the cortical level, but we can see that this rate is higher for the strengthening items compared to the other two, so the decaying and the control, in the second reactivation. So what they propose, so after all this, so before giving the conclusions, I'm just going to show the very last analysis. So this is at the local level. So in F, we can see what happened at the level of the hippocampus. And then in G, we can see what happened at the cortical level, only at the local level. But then they, in addition, measure the coherence and the connectivity between these two. And what they show is that there is in this first reactivation cluster, they observed that there was a higher connectivity between and coherence between the hippocampus and the cortical information for the strengthening items compared to the other two items. But then in the second reactivation, it was the opposite. So there was a higher connectivity between only for the control and the decaying items. So what they suggest, and I think I'm going to go directly to the final figure, what they suggest is that when participants learned something, so in this case, the location of these objects that were presented with this sound, at the moment of the consolidation of this memory, so when the participants were presented with the sound while sleeping, there is 2 points in time where occurs a reactivation of these patterns that were related with the learning process. So during this first reactivation, the call, there is a coherence and connectivity between the hippocampus and the cortical information, where there is this exchange of information that is like from the hippocampus to the more cortical level. And then in this second reactivation, there is the coupling of the hippocampus and the cortex, but there is a higher activity at the cortical level that it seems to be, for them, to be related to the long-term storage of this information that they learned during the task. So I think that's the main conclusions of this. Something very important is that when they presented the cue, so the sound during the sleeping period, they try to identify the moment of the non-REM sleep, because it has been shown from previous studies that is in this period of time during sleep, this phase of sleeping, where occurs this consolidation of the memories. So I will give the time for the discussion and to clarify maybe some things if we're not very clear. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Marcela. Super, super interesting study. Hands are flying up. Chris was first.
Thank you, Marcela, for presenting. One thing about the modalities of the stimuli, do they say that this is how memory seems to work for every memory, or every kind of memory, every modality of input, or do they say that it's probably specifically for so here it's sound and visual cue, but what if it was like smell? What if it was other, like, I don't know, it could be emotions, it could be I don't know, pain even. Would there be different pathways? Do they discuss that, or and what do you
No,
think?
the discussion is very, very short. I will say they try to explain this neurodynamic model that they propose of memory consolidation. They don't say, like, none of them, either that is specific to this modality or that is general. I guess it's more like what you can see from the discussion is more like this is a general model. But yeah, it's not something they specify. I guess that, what do I think?
Do you think, for example, like the hippocampus seems to be central in there? Do you think there would be several different nodes in the hippocampus that would be linked to different types of input? So in that case, that might mean that the hippocampus would be transforming the input into what we would store or what we would store in the brain? Or would that be a different mechanism? Like everything would be going through the same pathway in the hippocampus, so there would be maybe a bottleneck before the hippocampus. That would mean no.
Yeah, I would say yes. My opinion is that this is more close to be something more general than more specific to this. I think I will say that it's not only for these specific modalities. I guess I'm trying to think like of the patients with some impairment, some damage in the hippocampus. The kind of memory they lose is not only the memory that is related to specific modalities. So I will say that, of course, is important for, if not all, most of the different types of memories. But I will say it can be a more general. Maybe it's can help to understand most of the kind of memories, but I cannot say it's like certainly. Yeah, I will say that these mechanisms is important for most of them, but I cannot assure that that's for sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Eduardo had the same question, but he has a new one now, apparently. Here we go.
I don't know. Yeah, well, I had a similar question to the one Chris asked, because I was wondering specifically whether these effects are related to visual spatial memories, because we know the hippocampus is doing well at those kind of tasks, as far as we know from rats and mice. But I was also wondering that I couldn't completely understand the title of the paper, so electrophysiological signature underlying variability in human memory consolidation. So what kind of variability they're referring to, like the two phase of memory consolidation, or what?
No, the idea, at least what they try to highlight in the introduction, is that when we try to consolidate some memories, we don't consolidate all of them. Like, it's not that we remember everything, we only consolidate some of them. So this is what they wanted to show in the variability. That's why they did this separation, division of the trials between the strengthening one and the decaying one, where they found that even if they try to consolidate the 25 items, only a few of them were consolidated or had a better performance in the memory test after sleeping, not all of them. So I guess that's what they refer to the variability, and that's why then they describe that this the variability of the patterns at the hippocampus and the cortical level, that was different when the items were more consolidated, let's say, so the ones with better performance compared to the ones that were not like well consolidated,
yeah,
I guess.
clear.
So the blue ones, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And do they say anything about whether they consider these ripple spindle effects as a consequence or a cause of the memorization?
I don't think they say a cause. I guess is like they are important too, critical too. But yeah, I don't think there is a cause, or, but yeah. but
Okay.
I guess that's why they look at if this rate or this there's a similar pattern during the reactivation during sleeping, because this is what is important to the memory performance after. But yeah, they don't say this paper has like a lot of supplementary material. I didn't look at it like
No,
very
I mean, it's a
deep,
really hard question anyway,
but
yeah, I
yeah,
was just
yeah,
curious whether they say anything about the
yeah,
relationship between
no.
the activity and the actual performance. But yeah, thanks.
But yeah, in the method, actually, at some point, if you're interested at some point, but in the method, when they explain each of the analyses, they explain why the specific um, bands, frequency bands, or why this is specific. So I think maybe I missed some information, but for instance, why they look at high frequency band, because they have been related with. So I think they explain some of the analysis or some of the criteria they use to select analysis of frequencies or different stuff. But yeah, maybe I didn't mention all of them.
No worries, thank you.
Mhm.
That is all the time we have this morning. I just wanted to make 2 announcements. The first one is that this Wednesday we have a CNS talk on the new microstructure and functional MRI techniques that are available to study neuropsychiatric disorders. And there won't be a Neuroccino next week because it's a public holiday in the Netherlands, but we're back the week after. Now with that, hope to see you all on Wednesday for the CNS talk at 4 p.m. and wish you an exciting week in science. Bye.
Bye.